West Texas Droning, episode number 2. And welcome to episode 2 to West Texas Droning. Before we get started with our video today, I'd like to discuss something that anyone out there who's thinking about getting into the drone world or has just gotten into it and might need to discover some information that's important to them. And it's certainly important to the Federal Aviation Administration, and those are the guys you really kind of have to look at keeping happy. Now, there's a regulation under Part 91 that most people operate on. It doesn't specifically address the drone world, but the other aviation world, that says each pilot and command shall, before beginning a flight, become familiar with all available information concerning that flight. Notice they said all available information. That covers a lot of ground, and it doesn't specify exactly which thing here and there that you should check. And this kind of gives them a carte blanche, as if you want to put it that way, when they investigate an issue. Did you do this? Yeah, I did that. Did you do this? Yeah, I did that. Did you do this? Yeah, I did that. Did you check this? Well, I didn't think about checking that. And there's the gotcha. So you have to comply with not only the letter of the law, but the spirit of the law. Did you really exercise due diligence in preparing for this flight? Okay, you tell me, wait a minute. You're getting a little OCD for me. I'm just going to fly my drone. And I said, yeah, I know. In fact, there is a regulation governing pre-flight familiarization, inspection, and actions for drone operation. It says aircraft up there, but remember, your drone is an aircraft. It flies in the same airspace, possibly as regular aircraft. So you need to make preparations for what might occur. The first part of this, what we're going to discuss today, is prior to flight, the remote pilot command must. And you see a list of things there. We're going to talk largely about Part A here today. Local weather, local airspace, people around you, ground hazards. And the way we're going to address those is I'm going to recommend to you that if you're flying regularly with your drone, or you're going to be, and you've got a smartphone, of going ahead and getting your smartphone and making a little area with applications readily accessible on your phone to check out and to comply with Part 107 pre-flight requirements. Now, the first one we're going to talk about is, you'll see on this drone apps shortcut I made, two little blue M's. And what the M's are is shortcuts to a website called metartaf.com that lets pilots check on the weather around them, both the current weather conditions and the forecasts. Current weather conditions, as you know if you took your drone test, are METARs, and they come in a coded format. And this application decodes that for you, although if you want to roll down the page there, you can see the formal coded format that the weather observations come in. But this is handy, just glance at it, say no VFR restrictions, clear skies, no wind, good visibility, I'm good to go. And this is really handy to have on your phone. If you hit the TAF tab over there, you see on that right display the terminal area forecast. And that'll give you for hours ahead during the forecast period. And that'll say, well, I'm going to take off at this time, but at 2 o'clock or whatever time that's going to get nasty, you need to be aware of that so you can curtail your flight operations if something should go bad as far as the weather conditions. So that's something, a couple of really good apps that you can put on your phone. You can set them up for your location, tap them on the shortcut, and this is what you'll see. Now, there's some other apps here I wanted to show that I put on my phone, and up in the upper left-hand corner is a black square with a white propeller in it, and that's a link to a site called Drone Buddy. And I particularly like Drone Buddy and use it frequently because if you put on and go to your area, you get an instant display there of a lot of good information. You see your temperature, you see your winds, you see your visibility there. Something else you might need to know about is that KP index. What that is a reflection of the current or the last 3 hours of magnetic storm information that could be adversely affecting GPS satellite information and signals. Most of the time, it's below 5. If you see it high, you might be a little bit suspicious or leery about the accuracy of your GPS navigations. Another thing on Drone Buddy, if you scroll down the display that's on the light, there's a little map on the left display there. Scroll down to the bottom of the page, you see a little map. If you click on it, you get a depiction of your airspace around you. And you can see there's references for large airports, medium airports, small airports, helicopter airports, anything you might need to know where that's in the area where you're going to be operating your drone. A lot of these are still Class G airspace, like the little helicopter airport that's uncontrolled, and so is the little small airports you see depicted there. But it's a good thing to have reference to when you're getting ready to fly, just to know that, hey, there's something in the area that might need to be aware of in case a conflict comes up, just for your information. Now, some more apps on the drone world that I wanted to show you. One in the upper right-hand corner is called UA Sidekick. And what that is, it's a really neat little program that you can subscribe to that shows you your airspace around you and some information that is really kind of unique that you'd have to look up on a chart if you carried a sectional chart with you. You can see the little round circles with the airplane for the local little airports. But of particular interest is those blue corridors you see. And those are low altitude, high speed IFR and VFR training routes that the military use. And they go from perhaps the surface up to 10,000 feet. You can fly through them legally, but it's a good thing to know they're there in case you have a F-16 or something scream down that corridor at 9,000 feet. It'd be nice to know that is a potential occurrence in your area. Another thing that I like with UA Sidekick is in the possibility that you are going to want to operate in an airspace that is in controlled airspace, like an airport, Class B, Class C, Class D, Class E airspace, and you want to operate there. Sometimes or most of the time, you're going to fly in an airport traffic control zone. You need to have authorization. A way to do that is with this application, because this gives you access to the low altitude authorization and notification capability, in which you can send a request in to the air traffic control, and they can give you authorization to fly in an area that you otherwise would not be able to fly in. So it's a good thing to be aware of and have access to these resources quick and easy on your phone. Something else that I like to point out to people to put on their phone and to use is there's two apps to the right side below UA Sidekick, one called ADSB Exchange and the other one called Flight Radar. And what those are is there's a feature on the web called ADSB, that's in the center of their Exchange. That gives you depictions of aircraft real time that are flying in your area and color codes them as far as their altitude goes. Yellow, we're talking about the center app now. The yellow would be low altitude, and the purple and blue and pink would be extreme high altitudes, 30, 40,000 feet. And green's kind of the middle there. Now on the left, that is a FlightAware application, and it gives you the locations of aircraft in your area, and if you want to know their what they're doing, their altitude, their airspeed. You can tap on each individual aircraft, and it should give you a readout of where that airplane is, where it's going, how high it is, and just to make sure it's not going to be in a conflict for your operation. Over there to the right, and I could have put this along with the weather, but there's another app there on the phone. You see that in the lower center there called NOTAMs. You need to check your NOTAMs before you fly in an airport or in an area around an airport. They will have temporary flight restrictions published there. Navigational aid outages may not affect you personally with the drone, but it's a good thing to know. All the important temporary or medium range restrictions that may be put out by the FAA will show up in your NOTAMs. So that's a good thing to be aware of. So those are the things I thought I'd share with you. If you have any that you'd like to share with me, by all means, at the end of the video, go ahead and go down there and remarks and let me know about them. But right now, we'll go hop into our drone and head out. And there we go, jumping up in the air. This is a drone operated in the normal mode. The C mode is for cinematic, and the S mode, which is sport, is high speed, and I usually just use the normal mode to fly around and check on things. And as we head down the hill here, we're going to go over and check out the water level in our pond. And that's a little pond we use for watering the cattle, and it's good for wildlife to come in and get a drink of water in the hot Texas sun. And this is to also alert you to the fact that when you fly your drone out in the middle of nowhere, you still have to share the airspace. And here you can see a bunch of buzzards that were roosting in the trees taking off. You don't want to hit one of those. You just need to be aware of where they are. Now, buzzards normally don't attack a drone. They look for dead things on the ground to eat. But the possibility exists of other birds in the area that could cause you issues, like hawks. They may attack your drone. And in a fight with a hawk or a buzzard, your drone would lose. My incentive for getting my commercial license in order to utilize this drone in a commercial agriculture operation was basically it saves a lot of footwork. If I want to look over the countryside to see if there's anything that needs attention or that I need to be aware of, this is a lot easier flying over it in a drone than getting out and walking around on foot. There's places in this ranch that people haven't walked in years. Maybe the Indians did 100 years ago, but there's really not that much of a reason to go wandering around unless you're a wildlife. And so that's where this drone comes in for operating these agricultural properties. You can really take a survey and check out what's going on to see if there's anything that needs your attention. The drone camera has a zoom function, which I'll display on another flight, and it's particularly useful if you fly over the ground. See something of interest, instead of getting so low that maybe you lose sight of your drone, you can hover over the object and use the zoom function of the drone to do a more detailed investigation. Alright, so we're heading back toward the pond and toward the takeoff point, and one of the issues that I will address in a further episode down the road is the FAA's requirement of visual line of sight operations of a drone. In other words, I understand why they have this rule, I understand the need for it, but I'm hoping in future legislation and regulation and review of these regulations that some alterations or modifications to the visual line of sight rules can be adopted that would make the drones just a little bit more flexible, the usage a little bit more flexible than what we have now. That hill you see there that we flew over a few minutes ago is known by the family that owns this property as Ketchum Mountain, and that is talking about an outlaw famous in this area back in for the turn of the 1900s named Black Jack Ketchum, and he's even the name has been used in a couple of John Wayne movies, but he was an outlaw, and he hid from the law when they were chasing him, and legend has it he got up on that hill so he could see anybody coming, as far as the law coming to get him. He could keep surveillance. Now the issue or the curious fact about Ketchum Mountain is most of the land property ranches in this area have a hill that they call Ketchum Mountain. So I don't know if it's an ego thing or a fact thing, but people like to say, oh yeah, that's Ketchum Mountain. West Texas, miles and miles of nothing but miles and miles. Of course, the folks that live out here, raised out here, they love this country. It's a little dry, it's a little hot, kind of barren, but it's got its own unique character and beauty. This drone has some pretty good capabilities as far as speed and height. Part 107 of the Federal Aviation Regulations for drones restricts drone operation to an altitude of 400 feet above ground level. And something to keep in mind is that if you take off from the top of a 300-foot high hill or 200-foot high, if you climb up to 400 feet as you navigate out of the area, if the terrain lowers itself to maybe 200 feet lower than where you took off from, you have to lower your drone height a commensurate amount to keep from violating the 400 feet AGL rule. Now we're not paused there. That's just the drone's stability, showing you how stable and how it can just hover uh, and hold its position. Now I'm using the sideways flight control application where you just kind of go sideways like a crab. That's pretty cool to use. And if any of you were private pilots or higher above professional pilots, you remember the finesse it took to do some maneuvers in the aircraft. And I discovered that the same finesse has to be learned and mastered in drones to get the effects you want. But most of these drones have some amazing capabilities, not only for maneuvers, but for safety, and we'll talk about some of the safety features these things have. You can see as we descend here, when you look at the brush in the area, you can see the wind's whipping around fairly good. This drone can handle up to 24.7 miles an hour on the wind, and we'll warn you if the wind gets stronger than that. It's smart enough to know if the wind's blowing too strong. Well, there's another flight. West Texas Droning, Episode 2. We thank you for stopping by, and want to let you know that the drone is operated by a Part 107 certificated pilot, and the background music is recorded and composed by the site creator, and all rights reserved there. We don't want to step on anybody's foot as far as copyright, so we make our own music. We'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and have the bell notify you when we put out a new episode. And we welcome any comments or anything that you'd like to add or subtract from the information we put out on this. I want to make it a little bit educational along with enjoying the ride around in the drone. So we thank you very much for stopping by and hope to see you really soon.